you. I didn't realize there was a physical award. So hello, I am Stephanie Steinhardt. I'm from Cornell University, and I have been immersed in fieldwork around the construction of the world's largest collection of big data about our seas, called the Ocean Observatories Initiative. It's often called the Instrumented Ocean. And I began this project interested in the future of the OOI because it promised to build quite a beautiful future. Any body, whether you are rich or poor, gendered, educated, abled or not, can say something about our Earth and potentially about our climate. It aimed to be an infrastructure that unites. It is sensors on the ocean floor, seafloor walking robots, multiple satellites, buoys that plunge from the waves to unprecedented depths, gliders that look like these tiny little rockets that you drop off a ship and they fly from the coast of New Jersey to Portugal and back, and satellites, and each of them collect data in real time and make this public for anyone to make claims about. They can make claims about climate change or oceanographic processes, and these claims can drive major policy change for everyday living, from things in the auto industry to carbon footprints and energy consumption regulations. This world is flashy and futuristic and otherworldly, but at its other end, it is romantic fuel for the stuff of classic tales of exploration in the sea, based on ships where ropes and muscles are valued. I've conducted observational fieldwork around this initiative for over 3 years, including over 60 hours of interviews, interviewing and observing anyone affiliated with the OOI, working around the clock on ships like this, talking to technicians, biologists, physicists, geologists, and ship captains on boats like this, and meeting policymakers in their offices, and meeting data QA or project managers to walk around or sit on benches in places that look more like this. Or watching for 20 minutes as an engineer delicately and artfully braided wires inside something like this. But more often than not, I find myself in places like this one. This is an old library converted into an office space to house the cyber infrastructure development team of the Ocean Observatories Initiative. This is the infrastructure that takes the data from the sensors and instruments and transforms them into data streams for the web visualizations at once consumable by tenured scientists and the general public. The dream of the OOI is a high-tech future, one that will bring us at least 25 years of discovery, in large part oriented around a potential for answering the world's most pressing questions about climate. While all the work I described today was conducted during the planning and construction phases of the OOI, which began in 2007, the system actually went live last month. What I'll describe today is not about a single location, but effects that resonate throughout the globe. This project is distributed with hubs of innovation in the West Coast in the Cyber Infrastructure Group, Cabled Array at Station Papa and the Endurance Array, on the East Coast at the Pioneer Array, and up in the Erminger Sea by Greenland and Iceland. And off this map, there's a station down in the Argentine Basin. And this computational shift itself is a global phenomenon. While many oceanographers conceive of themselves like Jacques Cousteau, exploring gallantly on their ship to the edges of the known Earth, this initiative largely removes the need for going out to the sea. It replaces human eyes, ears, and hands with sensors, acoustics, and probes. Participants say, you no longer need real eyes to realize what's happening on the sea. Just a pun I kind of like. And many people said that, oddly. OOI is just one of many large U.S. initiatives attempting to transform fields of science. And this transformation is cemented as our future in official statements from our government, like these from the National Science Board and the National Science Foundation. Across many fields, these visions look something pretty cheesy like this. This particular one is missing my favorite element, which is usually a laptop on some kind of land that has a little dotted line to a satellite. The vision is otherworldly, but it's also revolutionary and utopian, and it's intended to carry us into the far future. What you'll notice is missing are any humans in this picture. Instead of looking like the previous image, OOI has come to look a lot like this one. A series of Nature and Science articles have been written about the fears of the OOI on the ocean sciences. People started to be concerned about whether this was worth the price, a projected $1.8 billion. OOI came at a time of financial constraint, the financial collapse, Fukushima, the Gulf oil spill, some unprecedented tsunamis and hurricanes. It was expected that with Obama coming into the presidency, with his platform espousing the importance of climate research and money gained from his later stimulus package, that the amount of money available to the ocean research world would only increase over the next 10 years as the OOI would be constructed. But instead, reality presented a significantly different picture. And like this Nature article states, the OOI began standing like a big white elephant coming online that we're going to have to feed every month or every year. So its maintenance, not even its use, but just its maintenance, is poised to occupy 60% of the ocean sciences budget right now. A year ago, this disbelief moved to the highest ranks of the US government. The National Science Board recommended a severe cut to the OOI that threatened to end it altogether. Scientists, technicians, and administrators on the project were disillusioned, stating things like, if we cut all of this, what is left even? Why do we do this? And what was delivered a month ago was some small fraction of what the OOI set out to build. So with that in mind, we come back to this library. And now you'll notice there isn't much innovating going on here. In fact, it's actually completely empty. There are no heads popping over these half walls or people walking this hallway right in front. Out of view, you can't see that all of the placards by the office doors are now without their names in them. The names have been pulled out. And what we do see is that more often than not, our innovative dreams assume a world of progress. We'll have increased budgets, higher capacities for computing, and an ability to develop at faster rates. We'll have more resilient materials and more precise instruments. But this is not always the reality. I have lately said that my participants look at the past as if it leads to a future they don't currently inhabit. The start of the OOI mobilized hundreds of people, redesigned or fully constructed new buildings for the people and technologies of the future. It required new policies at local and global scales, only to be faced with these fiscal hardships and unmet deadlines that have resulted in many pieces of the OOI being scrutinized, audited, scaled down, or fully shut down. What went live last month is some small fraction of what was catalyzed at its start in 2007. And not a single person that worked in this library the last time I visited, only 1 year ago, is affiliated with the OOI today. So I've reached this very confounding moment. I have seen this progressive period of planning and construction is just as much about breaking down as it is about building up. And this has become a story of what happens when we do go big and we do go home, and what happens when the risky mentality of Silicon Valley's fail fast, fail often comes up against the lived experience of development and the long-lived consequences of breaking down. Some moments of breaking down are global and catastrophic, while some are smaller and do not necessarily mean that the whole system will fail or that the whole system will fall away. In this sense, breaking down is endemic to all projects. And the thing about breaking down that we explore a little bit more in the paper is that it operates at multiple timescales. As formalized practices fall in and out of favor, new and contingent working orders emerge to take their place. For example, we explore processes on the left that unfold at short timescales like recommendation letter writing or documenting recent code commits, and some that go on the right for longer timescales, like reusing machinery or algorithms in future projects, bringing in collaborations from this last project to the next project. We see that the end of a project or sub-project does not ever truly mean an end. This body of work joins a literature that calls for taking degenerative practices more fully into account in HCI, STS, and architecture, recognizing the tight connection between valuing as reusable, in need of repair, as discardable, and the sustainability of our endeavors. So we turn yet again to this old and new library. This picture was taken the first time that I had a participant cry in front of me. And it would happen multiple times over the year to come. I see that failure and breakdown are not a swift, sanitized liquidation and restart as a Silicon Valley mantra would lead you to believe, but rather it is a messy negotiation between the technical and bureaucratic tasks of closing or scaling down and the hustle of trying to find a soft way to land your colleagues, your friends, and your own families. Breaking down surfaces narratives of care in our technological futures. There's much work involved in breaking down that attempts to take responsibility for stabilizing a space outside of any formalized plan that they once knew. And in doing so, it must also tame the effective components of collaborative life in decline. And these are things like self-destruction or futility, corruption, repression. And in breakdown, we see that often what gets forensically labeled as a technical failure is actually a failure to pay attention to human sustainability. For example, the code of a critical driver that pulled data from instruments was failing and behind schedule, and it was a huge point of contention within the OOI. It pushed back the project more than 6 months. Some said it pushed back the project almost 1 full year. And it wasn't the code that was failing. Instead, the lead developer on the driver had a nervous breakdown. After some major cuts to his funding and resources, to his team, he was left with a skeleton crew that sustained him in a period of working 70 to 80-hour work weeks. And he was forced to quit, took with him all of his system knowledge and all of his smooth collaborative relationships with his team, and then that had to be rebuilt by someone who had none of this. And I found that those who leave question their value, but then also those who stay often feel guilty for the opportunity. They often note how people smarter than them had to face harsh realities of finding new jobs, relocating, or reorienting to a new future. But by that same token, I've surprisingly also seen this near euphoric joy, this recognition that they won't have to live like this any longer, that they can finally get out of the trenches of this horrible way that they were working. Breaking down is a creative ongoing negotiation between longevity and impermanence, intervention and non-intervention, chaos and arrest. We see actors who engage in many preservation practices as individuals and collective groups. They develop documentation, distribute kudos and blame, design new narratives as though they are linear and causal so that they can create a coherence of what has just happened here. And they attempt to preserve some kind of legible legacy once they have left for those who come after them. And when you strip to a skeleton crew, as I've mentioned before, in these times of turndown, you place pressure on those who are left to carry a weight that is often more than what can be carried. In one of my most memorable interviews, I sat down and gave my spiel about what this research is about, and then I opened with my first question. It's a rather boring one. Tell me what you do. That's it. Tell me what you do. And it was immediately met with one tear. I have worked 80 hours a week for years. I have estranged my family. And I came to understand that this is 80 hours with no overtime. He ostensibly valued his own time at $8 or less an hour. And more than that, no one has stopped him from doing so, so his colleagues have verified his worth at $8 an hour. He says he does it because it has to be done and it wouldn't get done otherwise, that the greater good of technological innovation, of oceanographic discovery, of climate policy is more important than him as a solo actor in this world. One could argue that the infrastructure around him was built to support technical sustainability, but not human sustainability. That labor is not just about social, political, and organizational factors, but it is also about how innovating is a problem of infrastructure. As Marissa Cohn so beautifully writes about in her dissertation, it reconstructs what a technology means to us and how we live around it. This is all to say that we are not very far from the devices that we create. This isn't necessarily a dichotomy of hope versus hopelessness in the face of failure, even though my stories today were quite negative. This is about how technical visions are fueled by personal sacrifice and care. This is also a moment to reconsider the ways in which we order and assess a space. where things do not necessarily reform into something recognizable as the system it once was, where metrics of success tend to be moving targets. While often humans and things are revalued after they are repaired, and thusly reoriented back into a recognizable system, the active form of breaking down I describe encompasses that which does not again become disciplined and may fall out of view as waste or as a pure invisibility. Breaking down often discards as much as it recycles. And failure itself unearths important narratives that run through even the progressive parts of the development cycle. It is a moment that forces reflection, and what arises without provocation at all is an articulation of lessons learned. What if the project was smaller? What if the administrative procedures had less overhead? What if we had more communication with the public and policymakers? And I myself was actually met with a moment of reflection in this time of breakdown. If we follow projects in their moments of hope and ambition, maybe we should stay with them in their moments of decline. Thank you. And a special thank you to Steve Jackson, who supported this work.
Thank you, Stephanie. And we have time for some questions. So maybe you just come up. I put the microphone here.
Hi, Podorish UC Irvine. I want to thank you for a really marvelous presentation. It strikes me that there are many different actors here whose institutional relations give them very different kind of temporal relations to the projects. Graduate students, postdocs, scientists, engineers, faculty, and PI. They all have kind of like different relations to the project, both as it starts and as it ends. And so I wonder if you could talk a little about the different kinds of temporal experiences that different kinds of participants have in the sort of larger story of sort of like of rise and decline.
I'd love to. I'm attempting to write a dissertation about just that, or parts of that. So there are a lot of actors in this system. So there are the scientists that you talk about who are operating on the academic schedules and trying to simultaneously work within a semester where they also have to teach and publish and then also do the administrative work of project managing or building drivers or organizing teams, right? So there's these kind of semester-long things, and there are these rhythmic patterns that are of the academic cycle, but then within the project itself, there are these fires, these short-term fires that usually fall on the shoulders of people who are in the academic setting, and these scientists. But then there are also a lot of hard laborers, right, that are literally constructing these things, that are binding the wires, that are putting out the cables in the oceans, that are working as ship captains, that are helping to set up the mobile laboratories that exist on the decks of ships. And they operate on these schedules that have nothing to do with these land-based schedules of the academic circles. They go by the seasons, they go by weather, and then the time that it takes to take a ship out to sea and drop an instrument in the water for the project. I could talk on and on if there's anything that resonates there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's thank Stephanie again.